All right, here we are. Welcome to our Tuesday live show. Hope everybody's doing well. I am losing my voice a little bit here. I had some agent training earlier today. I've podcasted, and I think I've always had like a raspy voice anyway, but we'll get through it. Today we're going to talk about interest rates. There's a lot of talk about the Fed dropping rates. A lot of opinions out there. What will that do to the housing market? We're going to talk about this a little bit. Also, I want to start by really addressing what we're seeing with sellers right now, because it's really changing fast. And, you know, we knew, I've been saying that the housing market was going to crash for, I guess, since the spring of 2022. And we watched it change in many ways up until now. We watched buyers fall off a cliff, for one. That was a big, sort of like the big first step. Buyers started waking up as the Fed started raising interest rates. Mortgage rates followed. It's not directly correlated, but they do mirror each other in a lot of ways. The most recent Fed cut, rates went up, they didn't go down. So it doesn't have to follow the Fed rate, but it really follows the 10-year Treasury. And there's a lot of manipulation that can be done with the 10-year Treasury, where the government probably can manipulate mortgage rates. They could start doing quantitative easing. They could be buying mortgage-backed securities. They would buy them at cheaper than an investor pool would want to buy a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. So there are things that can happen, I guess, from a professional standpoint, and going back to 2022, I knew this wasn't sustainable. The rate of home price increases because of the artificially low mortgage rates, even though the federal government has stepped in, or the Federal Reserve has stepped in and manipulated mortgage rates by buying mortgage-backed securities. They had never dropped rates or offered mortgages in the twos in the history of the United States, when we've been tracking, really, even pre-World War I and World War II era, we've never seen mortgage rates at 2.75% or 3% for that matter. So what we really have to do is when we're analyzing mortgage interest rates and what everybody is saying, look, everyone that works in the business would love to see, probably except for me, I would love to see double-digit mortgage rates just because I know prices are too high. But when they started raising rates back in 2022, buyers backed off, and then so did inventory, really. We still ran very short on housing inventory. A lot of people had refinanced their houses. They were staying put. No need to sell. They just refinanced. They also had 3% mortgage rates after coming off of 4.5% or 5%. Some of them had 6% mortgage rates. So they refinanced. So they weren't going anywhere. So at the same time, we watched the buyers pull back. We also watched inventory levels drop very low. And now the exact opposite is happening all across the country. Year over year, more inventories are climbing, home inventories, because we're now hitting that threshold to where even the people that refinance, their life has changed, and for whatever reason, they want to sell their house. People pass away. People made bad mistakes. They realized they didn't want to be in the neighborhood that they bought into. But over from 22 until now, we've watched the market change in a lot of different ways. We watched home inspections come back, which in a way is an improvement for buyers. We've watched concessions, right? Where they started giving, sellers were giving down payment money again to borrowers, because not a lot of people have all the money they need to buy a home. So we've seen these things change, but now, since the beginning of 2025, we've watched a lot of the country start to really kind of flip. Mortgage rates have stayed at historical levels, which really 6.5%, 7% is a 50-year running average for mortgage rates. So when they're not being suppressed, we see where mortgage rates should be. But the problem is that all of the housing is still priced for the most part at that 2.75 or 3% mortgage. Well, now as we're coming off the spring market, we're seeing things drastically change. Sellers are shocked that their home isn't selling. They're trying to do price reductions, and yet that's not enough to move people to purchase their house. So they're sort of in a dilemma. They're either looking at, do I take my house off the market and wait? In fact, one of our viewers, and hope that they become a client one day, they've been in communication with one of our agents, has even said, you know what? I'm going to wait until spring. They wanted to wait until the fall because of a lot of different reasons. Capital gains, I think, is one of the reasons why they said, you know what? If we sell before we live there for 2 years, we're going to owe taxes on the gains, any gains. And we wanted to wait until the fall until that would not be the case. But now they have even said, we're going to wait till the spring because all this talk about dropping mortgage rates or rates coming down is making these sellers believe that they will once again get into a position where they will just blow the doors off of their house with ambitious, exuberant buyers standing in line in open houses and putting in multiple offers, sometimes needing spreadsheets, agents needing to put their offers on spreadsheets, literally 20, 30, 40 offers on one house in a matter of days and hours. I'm telling you guys right now, I don't ever think that we will get to that point again, at least in my career, which I'm hoping I have another 10 or 15 years that I'll probably go, hopefully. And I don't think we'll ever see it again. I've been serving this market since 1989. I've been a contractor, home builder, real estate agent, had a team, became a broker, have agents now. I don't think we're going back there. This was unless we have some kind of a wartime, some kind of another pandemic where we really step in, we've screwed, not me, they've screwed this market up. Okay, because what we're looking at right now is the housing market is so overpriced. It's overvalued. False expectations have been set on sellers. False expectations. Buyers are depressed. They don't think that a home is ever going to be affordable to them again. And everybody in this industry, whether it's an agent or a broker or except for me, as I had said before, and maybe a couple others, or if they're a loan officer, a title company, a home inspector. I mean, these people are struggling right now to keep their doors open, right? Because a lot of them expanded during this 4 or 5 year boom period. I've watched brokerages open up on every corner and expand their businesses, and now sales are non-existent. They're dropping off a cliff. And you'll hear real estate agents say that I'm wrong. But you can look at the numbers. I'm not wrong. I'm telling you the facts. I'm telling you the truth. And if our agent's honest, they're going to tell you the same thing. It's not the same market. So I went out this past weekend to show buyers some houses. And I don't do a whole lot of this. I do take a lot of my clients, past clients. I'll take them again. I take referrals that say, look, don't pass these people off. Please handle them yourself. But I do like to still show houses, sell houses, because it keeps my foot in the door, if you will. It helps me to understand, not just through my agent's ears and eyes, but it helps me to see what's really going on. You know, what is this market? What does it look like? And I can tell you that for the most part, I can see a lot of what is happening online in our MLS. I can go to Showing Time is what we use predominantly. It's owned by Zillow. And I can go into Showing Time and I can book an appointment and I can see if there are other appointments that are booked for those properties. And right now, when I'm looking at these appointments, there aren't any. We're looking at days and weeks of zero showings. Also, when I'm at the property, I notice and I was at one property that just hit the market day one, and we were there relatively early in the afternoon on a Sunday, this past Sunday. And my clients and I were the only ones there. Not that long ago, this wasn't the case. We were seeing at least somebody walking out while somebody's walking in. And if they allow overlapping times, Well, we're seeing multiple cars in the driveway, multiple people walking around, and this has changed. There was no one. We were there probably looking inside the house for maybe 20, 25 minutes, and we stood outside for another 25 or 30 minutes talking about the house, the area, the market, things like that. Still nobody came. So the question is, when mortgage rates drop, what will that magic number be, if there even is one, to get those buyers off the shelf? My opinion is you would need to be sub 4%, because that's really getting closer to where things are priced at now. We're seeing massive price reductions for houses that are sitting on the market for those that can sell. Another thing that I'm doing, which is really important, because as my buyers are calling me up and saying, Todd, what's going to happen? Will the Fed drop the rate? Will that affect our mortgage? What do you think? The important thing here is to realize that dropping the mortgage interest rate is not changing costs. It's been said that the cost of homeownership average in America is about $18,000 a year. And these are repairs, maintenance, taxes, insurance costs, things like that, okay? People are strapped, right? They're struggling. If they're making $100,000 a year, maybe, and I just did a video on this, maybe if they're in Maryland, they can afford a $337,000 house at 5.5%, which is another percentage point lower than where we are right now. So you could just do the math. Really, people shouldn't be buying houses or financing any more of a house than 3 times their gross annual income. So if you make $100,000 a year, you should really be looking at financing no more than $300,000. But there are people out there that are saying that, hey, you could afford a $337,000 or maybe even $370,000 if you want to strap yourself and slave yourself to your home. So a lot will have to happen to get rates to go south of 4%. I don't think a 5.5% note is going to do anything, but I do want to just kind of take a minute, and the sort of the format of today will be, we're going to talk about these rates a little bit. We're going to see how the market has been manipulated in the past by the government, how they've stepped in, and how they have allowed home prices to skyrocket, to become unaffordable. And so we're going to look at that by looking at a little bit of history, and then we're going to take some questions and comments and sort of see if I can help any of you with some of the questions that you have. And then we're going to cover the Northwest, the housing market in the Northwest. We're going to cover about 4 or 5 states that are going to include Washington, Wyoming, Oregon. We're going to look at these, Idaho. We're going to look at these states, and we're going to give you more of a macro view of what's happening there. We are going to start covering these different regions in our Tuesday live show. And so we'll dive into that a little bit. We've switched our schedule around a little bit in our posting. Hope you enjoy our new content that we have coming out. I think as soon as tomorrow night. We have new content coming out tomorrow night. We're really honing in on this housing market because it's ever changing. I still believe prices are going to continue to fall over the next 12 to 18, maybe even 24 months. I told you it was going to happen in 22. There has been manipulation in the market. There has been the prevention of foreclosures, right? The government has prevented foreclosures. Now I think California has a law that is being proposed, I don't think it's passed yet, where they want to halt all second mortgage foreclosures. Anybody in California that has a second mortgage, maybe a HELOC, that can't afford to pay their mortgage, the second position they want to halt those positions, preventing people from being kicked out of their homes. I don't like seeing anybody displaced. Foreclosure is part of life. It's part of the process. You make bad decisions, exuberant decisions. You have life events that happen. If you don't sell your house or can't sell your house and you can't pay for it, then foreclosure is the next thing that happens or should happen when you owe contractual money to a lender, right? This is the same thing now. All of a sudden, we have the administration saying that you got to pay your student debt. We're going to track you down, subtract this money from your from your income. We're going to impound maybe your bank accounts. We're getting our money, right? But what about these mortgage companies? So we've seen Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac sell non-performing notes or loans. We've seen them sell re-performing loans on the investor market to prevent it from going into the eye of the public to see that, hey, we are in a situation where millions of people are in financial distress with their mortgage payment. We're watching delinquencies rise, right? Very hard to get this data because it's masked well, all right? So if you're an agent or a broker in my case, and I'm looking at the MLS, I can easily put my pulse on the delinquencies by seeing foreclosures and bank-owned properties flood the market. It's not happening because that's not the route that they're doing it. They're taking them, the bundles of these notes, these mortgage-backed securities, are extracting them out, bundling these non-performing loans together and selling them to an investor for them to handle the foreclosures, and you won't hear about it. Because a lot of these foreclosures, they want you to default. They don't want you to pay your mortgage because they want your house. And they're buying it for a lot less in most cases than what you owe and what the home is worth. So these non-performing notes getting kicked in bundles of pools, and I've covered this before in my prior videos. So, but I could see historically what's happening by the amount of foreclosures, bank-owned properties, and then short sales. Now, a short sale is when a seller can't get what they owe on the house. And they have to contact the lender and say, look, my house isn't worth what I owe. Maybe they had multiple modifications. In the modifications, they took on more debt because they wanted to pay their credit cards down or whatever. They allowed them to do it. And what's happening is if their house isn't worth that, it would be a short sale. We're not even seeing those because homeowners know I don't have to leave my house. In fact, there's some people that are telling them, don't leave your house. If you can't pay it, just stay. It'll take them a year or more to kick you out. So why go out on the street? That's what they're saying, right? So we're not even seeing the calls come in where people are saying, look, I need to get out of this thing. I'm having a hard time paying my mortgage. I'm 60 or 90 days delinquent. So it's a mess. But I do want to go over some of the progression. So, basically, banks make money with mortgages. So if we're looking at the train wreck that occurs when the housing market stops, it halts. What happens is banks stop making money. Industries stop making money. GDP is affected, right? Because the housing market, when people are thriving and doing well, they're spending money, they're fixing up their house. Home ownership is why the government wants a lot of home ownership, is when more people own their house, they spend money on their house. They pay their property taxes on the house. They buy insurance, homeowners insurance. They fix it up. They go to Home Depot. They keep people working, contractors busy. So a lot goes into the housing market, which really makes me wonder, why would you destroy it? Why would you not be smart enough to know that by keeping these interest rates too low, all you're doing is killing the housing market? You're killing it. You're taking it beyond the affordable range threshold to where somebody can buy it. And again, we're not just talking about the cost of the home. We're talking about that average $18,000 a year that someone pays on top of their principal and interest payment just to be there, right? And that doesn't mean that they're keeping it in tip-top condition either, or that they even want to be there, right? So what happened is, way back when, prior to the 1930s, home ownership was very low. It was actually reserved for the wealthy. Most people rented, right? If you think of the old cities, the downtown areas, people rented apartments over businesses and things like that. Multi-generations lived together. And then the people that had homes, they would build houses on their property to make housing for their families. There weren't zoning laws that said you couldn't do that. So they would all get together. They would build a house for their kid or their brother or whatever. And that's how it was done, right? But prior to the 1930s, if you were fortunate enough to buy a house, you put 50% down on your home purchase, right? Mortgages were interest only. And depending on the lender, you had banks, savings and loans. You had insurance companies that would lend money on houses, like life insurance companies. They would lend people money for mortgages. There were multiple different types of lenders. However, the typical mortgage was five. Oops! I just spilled my water. Riley, get me some paper towels. The typical mortgage, that's a good blooper. The typical mortgage back then was 5 to 7 years, and it was interest only. So you can imagine it was only the rich, right? You had to, if a house was, let's say, $4,000, which a lot of the homes were, they were priced about $4,000. And back then that was a lot of money, right? Before the 1930s. Thanks. And what would happen is you would have to have half of that down. There were basically two payments. It was your first down payment, and then 5 years or 7 years, and sometimes in some cases 10 years later in the 40s. And what would happen is you would pay interest only payments, and at the end was your second payment, and it ballooned, and that was your other half of your home, the cost of the home. So a $5,000 house, you put $2,500 down, you paid the bank or the lender interest payments, and then that fifth year, your balloon payment at the end of 5 years was the remaining $2,500 balance. Well, a lot of people, especially when they were going through the Great Depression, they didn't have the money, and foreclosure rates were very high. Now, if you pay the bank or a loan guy, a loan shark, half of the price of the home and you don't perform, they're happy for the most part because they get a house for half price, unless home prices crash 50% like they did in 1929 through 1939. So again, Great Depression, home values drop 50%. So home prices crashing is really, it happens. It has happened in our lifetime, and it will happen again, right? And that's why I think that we are right now. But what happened back then during the Great Depression is when, and homeownership again was very low, and what happened was banks started collapsing. People were walking away from their home. The bank was like, well, it's only worth the balance. We're not getting these high interest payments anymore, which, by the way, back then were 6%. The average interest rate back in the 30s, right, and before was 6%, 6 or 7% for a mortgage, just like it is today, right? So, but anyway, I want to pull up a cool chart here, Joe, if you can help me with that. We got that up? Okay, good. This is a chart. It's on the truthaboutmortgage.com. I just found it. It's a cool, really cool chart. But basically, this chart is a historical mortgage rates of the early 20th century. And the important thing here, though they don't have the years mapped out nice and easy for you to look at, but this is 1921 through 1947. Okay. So we'll look at the mortgage rate. You can see what I'm talking about. So back in 1921, depending on who lent you the money, life insurance companies, that dark line, that was the more affordable lender. Then you had commercial banks. And then back then you had savings and loans, which is that small dot at top line. They charged the most in interest. And I would guess back then they each had their different qualifications. Maybe if you didn't make as much money, or you didn't have a life insurance policy with the company, you couldn't get a better rate. But still, it was over 6%. And you could see what was happening through the years. And then somewhere about the mid-1930s, we started watching mortgage rates fall even more. And then by the time we hit 1947, got this, we saw mortgage rates in the low fours, right? Low 4%. Now, let's look at the contract length, because that has changed as well. So you could see what I was talking about. So maybe, depending on your lender, you had a less than a 5-year loan mortgage, or maybe it was more than 5 years, and maybe it was even up to 12 years. That ran true again until about midpoint in the 30s, and we started seeing where they started going up in term, right? And then when we look at loan to values, this is very interesting, because what that means is how much you're allowed to finance. So right now, if you're a conventional or FHA, you can finance about 97%. You're either required to put 3 or 3.5% down. So your loan to value, let's just say, is 97%, higher than anything you see on this chart. If you're VA, you could actually buy a home with 0 down. Now, a lot of people think that that's great. We're helping our veterans, and I'm all about that. I support our veterans. But I still don't believe that you should buy a house with 0% down. You are already, it's like driving that new car off the lot. In an environment like today, you could be negative on equity day one. So should life happen? Well, you know what would happen next. If you didn't have the money to bail yourself out, you'd be underwater. That affects your credit. It affects your whole psyche. I mean, I don't believe anybody wants to deliberately stop paying their mortgage and live in their house for 2 years before they get kicked out on the street. It's not a very good morale booster, right? But this is what happened. You could see that somewhere around the mid-1930s, loan to home values started to go up, all right? So what we can talk about here is that, again, mortgages average 6%. Banks made their money lending you money. And then all of a sudden, the government gets involved. Okay. So how did the government get involved? Well, they started doing different things, right? In 1940, mortgage rates, like I said, dropped to 4.5%. And basically that was because government involvement. Back in 1937, the United States Housing Authority was created to address then that crisis that resulted from the Great Depression, right? So it began with the creation of the Federal Housing Administration, which is FHA. That was in 1934, all right? The United States Housing Authority, USHA, was formed to oversee public housing programs and was later abolished, and its functions were consolidated. And in 1965, the Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, as we know it today, was created to consolidate everything, right? So all federal housing programs now fall under HUD. So let's dive into why FHA was created in 1934 in the first place. And I think we have this where we can pull it up here. Do we have a chart on that? Or no, this is just percentage by decade. Anyway, FHA is one of the largest insurers, if you don't know who they are, in the world. Okay, 1934, they started insuring about 50 million mortgages from 1934 to now, they insured about 50 million mortgages, okay? So Congress created FHA in 1934. At that time, the housing industry was flat on its back, right? And literally 2 million construction workers had lost their jobs. So remember when I said earlier, why the construction industry and the housing industry is so important is because we do have a lot of blue collar workers that provide for their families. So when the housing market's flat on its back, like it was back then, government steps in, tries to do something, right? But terms became very difficult for home buyers that were seeking mortgages. All right. So, basically, back then you had to even put more money down. As I showed you in that chart, you were looking at 80% maybe they would finance, or 75%. So buyers had to have a lot more cash back then versus what they have now. So in my opinion, what we're going to see here is that mortgage rates are going to drop. I think that they're going to try and get involved and suppress the rates. I don't think they're going below 4%. But again, the lessons that we learned is that every time they do that, home prices go up, but I don't think it can go up anymore. I think we're looking at another 2006 where home prices are going to start falling from this point. I don't think we're going to see by them dropping rates that it's going to have any effect at all in home prices. Now, I'm going on record by saying that, right? I told you in 2022 this was coming. Wasn't my fault that it's taken this long for it to happen. So all of you out there that were saying that the housing market would never crash, the jobs market is strong, people will always buy, are now seeing the negative result of them being wrong. So let's go ahead and take a couple questions and comments, and then we'll dive into the Northwest. So why did they lower the requirement to get a mortgage to begin with? Deregulation is stupid. Well, I don't think so. Sid, I disagree with you. I think that we make choices in America here where we spend our money wastefully, right? You should have to pay to buy something. When I was a kid, there were layaway programs. There weren't credit cards. If your mom wanted to buy you something, they didn't put it on their Discover card or their Visa in their pocket. They took the product, took it back to the store in the back to the layaway department. They made a payment on it to lay it away, and they went in on Fridays or whenever over the weekend, every week that they got paid, and they put money down on it until it was paid for, and then they could bring it home. Okay? So deregulation, the government shouldn't be in the areas that they're in today, in my opinion. They shouldn't be suppressing or telling people that they could buy the most expensive purchase of their lifetime that they can barely afford for only 3% down, that they can't weather any kind of a financial downturn. We shouldn't need two incomes for people to just scrape by in America today, all right? Prior to all of this suppression of interest rates, people could pay for a house on one income, all right? In fact, regulations probably caused the fact of the McMansion, the cause of the McMansion, because builders didn't want to build 1,000 square foot houses because they can't make any money. Because of the crony capitalism, because of the people that get paid along the way, because of the products that get required to use so they can control the cost of those products, right? This is not from deregulation, my friend. This is regulation, all right? How did they do it before? How was mom able to stay home and raise her kids instead of somebody that you don't even know raising your kid and putting into their heads things that you wouldn't even dream of? So where we are right now, in my opinion, is this is a mess. Home prices need to continue to drop. It's not going to happen overnight, and you're not going to be able to write an offer for $100,000 less on a $500,000 home and expect that seller to take it today. But I believe that over the next year, over the next several years, despite what they do to mortgage rates, unless they take them below 4%, prices are coming down, okay? They're coming down. So they should lower, well, maybe I'm seeing this message wrong, but deregulation is not stupid. Deregulation would make these rates and make requirements, make rates go higher and make borrowing requirements become even more stringent, right? You should have, if you're an investor and you buy a house, you need 30% down on average to buy that house, at least 20. But probably more like 30 or 25 or 30% down to buy a house to flip or to rent or whatever. That should be the same when you're buying a home. You should save enough money that you can afford a big down payment so that you're in an equity position day one. It would bring these prices into check. Most people are looking to sell down here, bought in 2023. They are trying to get out, but prices are softening, and they might end up stuck. And I don't know where down here is, Clark, but maybe it's in Florida. But we're seeing prices drop in North Carolina, Arizona, Florida, South Carolina. I mean, a lot of the country, we're going to look at the Northwest today. They're dropping in prices. Even popular cities dropping in prices. Days on the market are increasing. The percentages of sellers taking less than they want is increasing, and they're shocked. People may try to sell to get cash out of what might seem to be a falling market if it isn't looking good. All right, just leave that up a second. If, my opinion, If I were selling a house today, I would not wait until March. We just watched what happened in March. If you're following anything in the news, we are in an everything bubble. We're in a stock market bubble. We're in a housing market bubble. If you listen to the people that say the home prices are not going to adjust or not going to crash, I think they're wrong. We're seeing it happen. If that were the case, if the job market were strong, if people felt that they could afford a home, we wouldn't be seeing a slowdown. We wouldn't have just witnessed the worst spring in decades in sales. Home builders have been offering 5% and 5.5%, guys, for years. They've been doing rate buy downs for years. You tell me why it didn't work for them. You know why? Because people can't afford HOA fees. They can't afford the insurance. They can't afford the property taxes. These are new homes. These are houses where they don't have to spend any money other than their mortgage payment. And it's not convincing them to flood the market and buy up all the housing stock because they can offer 4%, 3.99%, some of these builders on a new home, and they still can't move the inventory. I mean, come on, let's get real here. Let's think about this, right? I mean, am I talking crazy? If you think I'm crazy, I think you're crazy, all right? Because this isn't working. I knew that back in 22, it wasn't working. If I were selling a house right now, I'd be selling it as fast as I could. I would price it at the bottom of the market and hope I got more for it. And if I had cash, I'd wait 4 or 5 or 6 months before I bought a house if I didn't have to go anywhere. If I could move in with family or get a good price on an Airbnb or short-term rental, personally, I would wait. Agents don't like it when I said that. I had a conversation with my agent today. He goes, well, you did tell people to wait. Not all people. If you want to go out and buy a house right now and you can afford to do it, go do it. If you find something that you want and you can afford it. But most people don't have that luxury. They're stretching. They're stretching to buy. You shouldn't stretch. You shouldn't be stretching to buy. And you can't find, I'm looking at houses for buyers that are in the $300,000 and $400,000 range. And the inventory that's out there in that price range here in Maryland and a lot of desired areas where people want to be, if you can find single family houses in that price range, they're in bad shape. They need a ton of work. Or there are flippers that did 90%, but you can see the 10% they didn't do because they were dumb. They weren't educated. I looked at one house. They did a beautiful job on the house. In the yard, they bulldozed material into the ground off the cliff. There's a barn down below. You couldn't even get to it. And there's metal sticking up out of the ground and building material. It looks like the dump. And of course, my buyers looked at it and was like, what the hell's that? I can't explain it. I mean, you spend all this money fixing up your house. Why didn't you spend another $10,000 to get rid of the crap and put a yard in? I would have never put the house on the market. And they want top dollar for it. This is shocking sellers. I don't know why. I mean, a 10-minute cruise around AI can tell you what's happening. Don't want to do AI? Just Google search it your traditional way and start reading articles. Stop listening to real estate agents. There you go. Cameron, how are you? Home builders in Colorado offering 3.9% 30-year fixed, not moving homes. Case in point, right? Price. We're going to watch it tick down. That's what I believe. I'm in the market in Florida, but will not buy till I see price drop of 20%. I think that's practical. I've had some people on my show. Harry Dent, he says 50% price crash, 60% price crash. You can see prices fall. I don't personally believe that. I don't think that will occur. In the beginning, before prices went up another 20%, I had said 10% price crash, and then they continued to go up. So could we see 20% price corrections in most cities? Possibly. I think so. I think we're seeing it now. We're starting to see it now in some markets. This country is buried in debt and will take an enormous amount of work and sacrifice to bring it back, a sense of normalcy, 100%. We haven't learned our lessons, apparently. I'm 45, play tennis with the guys in mid-20s. I think they're making good money because they earn $100,000 a year, but they can't afford a house. I was making $35,000 in 2004 and bought a home. Look, I was talking with somebody today, a family of 4, spending over $400 a week in groceries. Now, you may say that that's impossible. I don't think it is. I think it's practical. I think that's realistic. I don't think it's sustainable. This is why people aren't flooding the door buying houses right now. I don't think it's sustainable. I went to the Maryland State Fair this past weekend. Beautiful weather for the fair here. Usually it's either hot or raining. Beautiful weather. It's $15 to park. This is a state fair. $15 to park, $15 to get in, unless you were 67. And then you could get a senior discount. I don't qualify for that. I tried. $15 a person to walk in, to walk around the fair, to throw your money. If your kid wants to play games, if your kid wants to ride rides, if you want to eat a Italian sausage of very poor quality, it's terrible. Horrible. $16. It's a glorified hot dog. $16. Had some onions and green peppers on it that taste like absolutely nothing. And a stale roll. And a $4 bottle of water. So when I was there, I couldn't help but to say to the cashier, "Have you been busy?" And they said, "No, it's been terrible." And I said, I believe it. I believe it. I'm looking around and it's not even crowded. You can't even take your kid to the fair, for crying out loud. It's disgusting. It's despicable. It's a disgrace. HOAs are more than principal and interest right now. HOAs, I got a great video coming out, man. You guys are going to love it. It is really a good video. It posts Friday. I think it drops Friday. I think it's Friday. Huh? Yeah. I have also, I'm trying to get an interview with this one attorney. He's written books on HOAs. I mean, he's defended people suing their HOA. I'm really excited. We've been going back and forth in email. I think we're going to get him on the show. But HOAs, man, powerful. HOAs are powerful. They are governments of neighbors with egos telling you what you can and cannot do with your house that you just paid $750,000 for. And they can fine you, they can assess you, they can raise your dues. There's a lot of corruption in HOAs. And they can prevent you from selling your house at a profit. Because you buy the house, the new home construction, they're like, oh yeah, our HOA fees are only $126, and then 3 years later, they're $400. And then it's common, the board says, well, the builder was very unrealistic when they put the budgets together. I don't know what they were thinking. Well, they were thinking of selling houses, and they were thinking that if they told you it was only $126 to have a swimming pool, a clubhouse, pickleball courts, walking trails, the perfect lifestyle, And then they get out of there finally because they turn it over to the HOA. And by the way, they have to pay HOA fees too. So they have to, once they start selling houses and they dedicate the street or the area to the HOA is formed. Usually somebody from the builder stays on the board. It's important. They become a board member. And then because they have to pay HOA fees too, they got to contribute into that kitty so that they can keep those HOA fees down to $126 a month. And then when they're gone, the board looks at their budget and they go, wow, this is the landscaping, the mulch has gone up, the grass cutting has gone up. My gosh, we had a blizzard, the snow, we don't have enough in reserves for the snowstorm. We didn't do this, we didn't do that. A lot of them, they have to have reserve studies. And what basically a reserve study, somebody comes in and tells you, at least in Maryland, look, you got to have this much money in the bank for all of the things that will eventually fall apart. And then they realize they're uncapitalized. They give them 3 years in Maryland to get their reserves sufficient to cover those things. And then a lot of times they look at each other and say, we're going to have to raise dues. We're going to have to raise the fees. Or you get some board member that wants something different. They want to put a fish pond in or a little sitting area or whatever that wasn't there. And that costs $50,000, $60,000. So we'll just special assess everybody and get a little extra money out of everyone so we can have it. Because that's what we vote for. You say, I didn't vote for it. Tough. You're going to pay for it anyway. That's HOAs. A lot of them, especially the older, like condominium associations, man, they are so undercapitalized. You had that horrible incident in Florida where the condominium building collapsed. They weren't doing their required maintenance, so they have to do it. And now everybody's getting rate shocked with their HOA and condo assessments. So like, man, I can't even afford to live here. I paid $550,000 for it, and I got a $600 a month HOA fee. Tell me where that makes sense. So then you decide it was a great idea when you moved in, but now you want to sell. And then now the buyers, since they're not as exuberant as they were during the pandemic boom, never to happen again. But what's going to happen is you're going to go to sell it and they're going to be like, you're what? $600 for your HOA fee? No thanks. Keep it. Now, what are you forced to do? You got to drop your price because in order for them to come in, and that's the thing. Let's say the government comes in and says, we're going to drop interest rates. We're going to start buying mortgage-backed securities again, and we're going to suppress mortgage rates, and we're going to get them down to 4%, and that's really going to stimulate things. Are they going to reduce the cost of the house or the requirement for insurance? Because the replacement costs, if these prices stay high, will be just as high as they are now. So you just can't adjust one thing and expect it to move the needle to where buyers are going to be excited about buying a house again. Start making offers, shake the trees, you might get something. Yeah, and I look, Jake, I think you have to be realistic. Right? I mean, I have a buyer that says, look, I got a $589,000 listing. I want to lowball him. I want to give him $450,000. That ain't happening. When you look back in 2018, they bought the house for $454,000. So you want to offer them $4,000 less than what they paid in 2018. Most people would give their front teeth to have a house priced at 2018 prices. I just get new ones. You get implants. You can start making realistic offers. The problem is your agent going to do it? Or are they sitting back in the lawn chair in their yard next to their pool going, I got a buyer that wants to see this house, but they ain't going to buy it, and I don't want to go and show it to them. Because that's the way a lot of agents feel. They're like, well, if you want to give a lowball offer, I don't even want to go look at it. So you have to be practical if you're going to motivate somebody to get off their lawn chair and go and see it. So what you do, and I'm not saying don't give lowball offers. I'm not saying maybe you're offering what it really is worth. But their agent priced it wrong or the seller's unreasonable, but you can't make them sell. So you have to look at things. You got to call the agent and say, look, I have a buyer that's looking at your $589,000 listing. I see that you made a $10,000 price cut. It's been sitting on the market for 60 days. What's the deal? What do I tell my buyers? Nobody else wants it at that price. When's the next price cut? A lot of times agents aren't supposed to do this, but a lot of times they'll say, I know, I'm getting ready to get rid of the listing. I keep talking to my seller. They think it's me doing something wrong. They'll talk to you. If you ask the questions, a lot of them will talk to you. I mean, it may be breaching their confidentiality, but I mean, it's not illegal to ask. Ask them, when's your next price cut? What is going on? Miraculously, oh my gosh, we just had 18 people look at it today. 60 days on the market, $10,000 price cut, 18 people. 2 weeks later, house is still on the market. What happened to the 18 people? I mean, this is real life. Have a conversation. My client was to look at it. They're thinking it's worth $75,000 less. I agree with them. Do you think that's possible? Have conversations. Shake the trees. See what happens. There's nothing wrong with representing your client if you're an agent listening to this and doing this kind of stuff. That's ridiculous. That's preposterous. I'm not giving them a $40,000. Look at what they bought it for. You may be wasting your time if they just bought it in 22 or 23, but if they bought it 10 years ago or 15 years ago and they paid less than half of what it's listed at, they probably have equity that they can share to get out of their situation. So you've got to shake the trees. There you go. Take the Todd Sachs course and make your own offers. Look, I'm telling you right now, and this wasn't a setup. Thanks, Jake, though. This is the best thing I can do for you buyers. I can't help everybody. I can't even answer the phone calls or the emails that are coming in. I can't even do it. I can't keep up with it. And though I'd like to hire people just for that purpose, that's not practical. I'm a businessman, right? I can't do it. The best thing I can do is put my years of experience from building houses, from being a contractor, working on homes, helping people fix them up, getting them ready for the market, helping people negotiate deals, helping people decide whether they should even buy the house in the first place because they have 6 barking dogs next door that never shut up and irresponsible owners that just leave them outside. But you didn't know that because you didn't take my course to know to go back on the weekend or go back in the evening and check the different times of day. There's one situation, I was down at a walking path, and yes, I try and get some exercise, and I was pulling into the parking lot, and it was full, and I noticed that in this park, this path, this is not even a parking lot, but the street that leads to the parking lot is packed with cars, like front to back. And the people are taking their bicycles out and they're putting them down in the people's front lawns. And I was saying, man, if I lived here, I'd be so upset with these people bringing their dogs, and the dogs are running there. They're on a leash, but they're still 6-8 feet peeing and pooping in the. I'm going, you would never know that if you bought that house on a Tuesday, your home inspection was on a Thursday, and you never went back again. You wouldn't know until you moved in that on a beautiful day on the weekend, people are lined in your street. You have a hard time even getting out your own driveway. People make these mistakes. It happens all of the time. Most of the mistakes that people make on buying houses could be 100% avoided. My course is $300. It's cheap. You get almost 9 hours of lessons. You can pick and choose 14 lessons. I give you worksheets. I give you contract examples. I give you resource guides for if you need down payment assistance. There's a lot that goes into this and a lot of education. Thanks, Jake, for mentioning it. It just allowed me to. You know, some people get mad at me. I have like an ad that runs on some of the videos. Are like, look at Todd. He's a shill. He's now advertising his. I've been giving you free information for 4 years on YouTube, at least 2 and 3 days, if not more, a week. And you're going to say I'm a shill because I'm talking about a product that I created to help people. Nice. would hate to see what you do for a living. Oh, yeah, Todd can't sell houses. He's got to sell courses. I can reach more people that way. I can help more people that way. All right, what else we got before we go into the Northwest? All right, we ready? All right, let's check it out. This is where things get a little funky. What were these things? Weren't there more things? What? You pulled it up? Okay, good. All right, so we're going to Wyoming. All right, so let me just give you guys a little information if you haven't seen my market update so that you understand how we do this. So I don't have access to all the MLSs, over 1,000 MLSs, probably 1,400 or 1,500, maybe even more in the whole country, the way they break them down. They're all ran by National Association of Realtors and Company. They're owned by the boards, the local association boards. And, of course, you don't get access to it unless you pay. You got to pay money quarterly, of course, to have access to the MLS. Well, Zillow is a broker in all 50 states. They did that, and D.C. They did that several years ago, and everybody in the industry was kind of like, interesting. So Zillow aggregates because they have all of the data, most of the data, and the Realtor Association got creative and said, look, we're going to come up with these delayed marketing listings, and we're going to let sellers, if it's a good idea for the seller, which is a horrible idea for the seller, we're going to let their agent be the one that markets it solo, not putting it on the internet. And that's a great idea, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. I think I can convince you of that. It's a terrible idea. Why you wouldn't want your listing to be broadcast to sites like Zillow. But the National Association of Realtors, to hold on to keeping agents in the game, they said, look, if people don't use buyer agents because it costs them money now that they don't have, then what will happen? Our buyer agents will go away, and oh my gosh, then our revenues are going to go down. And basically, we got to protect the agent. So what we're going to do is we're going to give the agent the authority to convince the sellers that they could list a house with them and hold it back from the internet for a period of time, called delayed marketing. Well, Zillow got their feathers ruffed up and said, okay, fine. If you do that, we are banning that listing. Even once your delayed marketing period expires, we're not going to put it on our site. That listing is banned from Zillow. And I think a couple of the other sites, including Redfin, did the same. I could be wrong on that, but I believe that Redfin said, you know what, we're with you. We're going to stick to the same. Realtor.com's not quite as, nimble. They license Realtor from the National Association of Realtors. So they have to abide by whatever, because it would probably go against the licensing, and then they wouldn't have Realtor.com anymore, and that would be a catastrophe for their platform. But anyway, I'm looking at Zillow when I'm looking at these macro markets because they have all the data. I've been to their headquarters. I watched them unpeel the onion. They know everything about you as a home buyer. Between them and their other site, Trulia, they really own a huge market share. And by the way, BlackRock owns a very big part of Zillow. And I think they just re-upped even some more stocks. I saw that in the news. But Zillow does a really good job of aggregating data and providing you with information. So you could dive deep into this yourself. I'm just going to show you basically how to do it. You could just search Wyoming housing market, or you could do Jackson Hole or whatever it's called. I don't even know. But whatever city, Wyoming, anywhere in the country, and it will give you a market update. Now, I want to look at this thing together because I want to explain it a little bit. From a macro view, Wyoming housing market seems to be doing on par with what we saw prior to the pandemic, where we were seeing home prices on average appreciated anywhere from 3 to 5 or 6 or 7% year over year, not 25%. The idea of home prices going up every year is keeping up with inflation so that it would become an investment to own a home, that your home would appreciate, and that also that wages would be able to keep up with inflation and then keep up with housing costs. So this is showing that in 1 year, the Wyoming housing market, the average home value has gone up. Now, average is kind of a funky way of looking at things, but so is median. Because an average is you take every property, add them together, and then divide it by the number of properties, and that gives you an average price. But you got to calculate it some way that makes sense. And if you did median, that's kind of screwed, because basically if you saw a median home value, and the mainstream media loves to talk about median home values going up every year, it's because the rich are buying the houses. And when you have a certain amount of houses, like 100 houses, and the bulk of them are wealthy people, the median, or the one in the middle, is going to be an inflated year-over-year price, because they're the only ones buying houses. But we do have to look at trends somehow. So I think using an average versus a median is probably a more accurate way to look at this, okay? When we're looking at a macro scale. So let's look at a couple takeaways. So you could scroll down, you pick your area, and there's a couple things that you can do, right? We can look at this left-hand column. It's going to give us some stats. And if you've never seen me do this before, the housing market is backward-looking data. That means that it takes 30 to 45 or sometimes 60 days for the house to close, especially in the case of new construction, if they're reporting to the MLS, which most of them will. They're sold inventory. But it's backward-looking because it takes that time to see the closing, to know what people actually paid for their house. So here we can, on this left-hand side, we can see the median sale price, which is that middle price, right? Not the average value, but we can look at the median price. And if you wanted to get good at tracking an area, you could do this every month and set up some kind of a spreadsheet for yourself and track your own area down to your city that you're interested in. 13.5% of sales were over list price, 54.3% were under list price. It took an average or a median 23 days to go from active day one to pending status. And then here you can see their max view gets you back to about 2017, which covers pre-pandemic. You can see what happens in every city and every state in the United States. It looks similar. But what you want to do is click on, and you can do it by single family houses, condos, or just all homes. You can also change it. Well, they had some different drop downs, but it looks like we're on the home value index, so you're stuck with that. But the 1 year view is what I want you to pay attention to. Because when you look at this, you go, okay, in Wyoming overall in the state, it looks like they are still trending upwards. Now, the price variation or the variable will be very little, but it's the trend that you're looking at. It's the trend line that you want to focus on. Are things going up over time, or are they trending down over time? It doesn't matter that this goes from only 351 to 372, because when you get more micro into the subdivision that you're interested in buying in, or the city or the zip code or the area, you'll be able to do this exact same thing and see the difference in prices from their history of when it first hit the market. What price reduction was next? Then when was the next price reduction? Or did it sell for more than the list price? But this is giving us a real overall view. Now, I did also do Cheyenne, because this is a popular city. I think 60,000 or more or something like that people. It was one of the most populated cities of Wyoming, if you can imagine that. Again, not the 5 point something percent, but they're still showing an increase in the area. So that would cause me to want to dive in further. What's going on? Are jobs coming to the area? Why is this area performing better than lots of other parts of the country? But you could still see here that 45% of sales are being sold under list price. And when you click on that 1 year view, it's not as trending upward, but something since May has definitely happened that's causing this reversal, this mild reversal, to move in the other direction. Okay. So we don't have to explain it quite the same way for each one of these, but we'll just cruise through them. Montana, again, a modest increase year over year in average home values. 59.5% of the sales are being sold under list price, almost a full month, depending on average or median for the state. And then we see something different happening here. And when we click on this 1 year view, we can clearly see that they peaked out somewhere around March and that their values are trending downward. That's what we're looking at here. What's happening in the state? What's happening in the area? And are these values going up or going down? If you listen to people like Dave Ramsey, and I like Dave Ramsey, I don't have a problem with him. He says that things never go down, home prices, and that the only reason that they're going down, I heard him just talk about this, was he said because sellers are desperate. It's not the buyers that can't afford it. It's the sellers are desperate, and because of their situation is why we're seeing downward trends in certain areas, why states and cities and subdivisions are tanking in a lot of cases. It's the seller being desperate. Montana, let's go to Great Falls, Montana. This is up 6.99 or 6.9% year over year. This is the difference. See what I'm talking about? Look at this trend line down. So the question is, what areas in this state are doing this well? Well, Great Falls, for some reason, is going up. That'll move us into Idaho. Now we have an agent that we've had on our site, great agent. He's up in northern Idaho. Owns a brokerage, used to be a state police officer, state trooper, I think, in California. Moved to Coeur d'Alene, or however you say that. I don't know. I'm going to butcher it again here in a minute. But Idaho, not up as much, but looking 49, about half of the houses are selling for under list price. If we go to this 1 year view, look at this max view. I mean, clearly back in 2022 is when they started to experience their troubles. This is when mortgage rates went up, right? So they probably exploded. Look at this line. They exploded. So a lot of areas, if they didn't go up very high, they may not come down very low. But when you see areas where, man, people really flock to certain states and you really see that trajectory going almost straight up for a period of time, it sort of maxed out here when the rate shock hit. So it was probably mostly rate sensitive buyers. And then we saw that dip, and then really we've seen some recovery, but it's sort of changed here in February. And looking at this 1 year trend from February on, Idaho housing market is showing downward trends in pricing, home values. Coeur d'Alene, I don't know if I'm saying that right or not. It's a weird looking word, man. Can't blame me. Look at this. This is one of the most popular areas. This is where our agent friend is that was on our site. Trouble in Paradise here. Scroll down, over 50% under sales price. Look at this flattening that we saw since 2022. We get to the 1 year. I mean, looks like recently they're rebounding, but look at this downward spiral. I mean, that looks like a fun roller coaster ride. This is one of the most popular areas in northern Idaho. Washington State, flat year over year. 36%, almost 37% sold under list price. And the 1 year view here, you can see it's tanking. We're not seeing that Coeur d'Alene or lane swing back up. Right now, we're still seeing prices tanking in Washington State. Let's look at Seattle. Even more so, it's tanking. 1.4% down year over year. Home values, no one likes to see their home value go down. 37% selling under list price. Look at this, same thing, right? So you get the idea. You can see these trends. Finally, we'll look at Oregon. They're down state year over year. Again, no upward tick or rebound, even in the spring of this year. 45% almost sold under list price. And Portland, Oregon, which I went to, I don't know, we traveled, did some podcasting there, met with Brent Beardall, and Seattle, Washington was Wafed Bank's CEO, probably still is. Interviewed him at their headquarters. Portland was eye-opening, but Seattle, Washington was much worse, I thought, at least for open drug use on the streets and tents for what it seemed homeless people for miles. Portland was the same way as far as homelessness. But again, looking at this 1 year view, you can see they're still going down. So again, if you're looking at buying a house, guys, you need to familiarize yourself with the market that's happening in the areas that you want to buy a home in. First, pick the area. Don't come to a real estate agent or drive yourself nuts by saying, well, I can live within a 60-mile radius of this point right here. No, you can't. First, know the area. Understand if it's the lifestyle that you want and where you want to be. Then start zooming into subdivisions and watch these trend lines, because I don't want to see you get burned should these home prices continue to fall. Take a couple more questions, and then we're going to give my voice a rest for the night. It's going to take a while, but the baby boomers retiring, 80 million of us are going to crash the market. It's just math. I think it was Yahoo Finance last year published an article that said that 30 million baby boomer households would be selling their home in the next 5 years. We haven't seen it happen yet. So that's 1 year down with 4 more years to go. But I think you're right. We could see the baby boomer wave completely flood this market and crash it, especially if they see that rates, and that could happen too. If rates start to drop, more sellers are going to say, well, I can get more money for my house. I'm going to put it on the market. I'm going to put it out there. And believe me, more inventory flooding the market is going to drive prices down. It's going to give buyers a lot more options. And, well, I don't want to talk about that right now, but I have a video that I did that's worth watching. Something to do. I don't even know what the title of it was. You can pull it up, but it was the one where we talked about the dollar home being sold, the dollar house. Maybe flash that up on the screen here. If you guys haven't watched this video, it is something worthwhile watching, because agents are playing a lot of games right now, and you can't get caught up in this if you're buying a house. First of all, agents are pretending like they're auctioneers without auctioneer licenses, and it may not be illegal right now. That's it, false advertising. It may not be illegal right now for a seller. So a lot of people say, do they have to take the price that they're asking for it or that they offer it for sale? So if a seller says, or an agent advertise a house for $1, if I show up first with my $1 or we bid from there, and one agent even said, and I cover it in the video, that you could buy this house with the change in your couch. It's a lie. You can't. It's false advertising, in my opinion, but the law doesn't say that it is. But I had an appraiser send me an email after I published that video and said it really is illegal, or they're trying to change the laws to where it's illegal, because these agents, beware of your stupidity. What's happening is you're pretending to be an auctioneer without an auctioneer license. And when you open bid a house at $1, first of all, the law says, no, in real estate, the advertised price is the starting negotiations for the house. The seller can tell you no. So if they have a house that's listed, and one agent just did this, it drives me crazy. I think let's just use these numbers for ease because I'm exhausted, but $650,000 house. They dropped the price to $500,000, so they did $150,000 price reduction. And the agent said, please see agent remarks. Well, I looked at the agent remarks in the listing, and it said, do not come with an offer of this price. Use comparable home sales to write your offer. What the hell are you doing? Why are you playing games and ruining our name even further dragging the realtor through the mud even more. The public already can't stand us. They already distrust us. Why the hell are you playing games? Why are you putting a house on for $1? Now, how do you come back from that? Now, what is it, 400,000? If you're a seller and your agent is recommending this, don't hire them. Put them in Clueless category. Guys, we got to clean our act up. Brokers, you need to clean your act up. You need to start controlling your agents. If one of my agents tried that garbage, they would not be with me. I would not approve it. And I have to approve all advertising. That's an advertisement. That's not a listing. Brokers, it's a requirement that a manager, a team leader, or broker needs to, you have advertising guidelines. They have truth in lending standards. If you buy something at the store as an on-sale price, you can't run that as an everyday price. There are laws that require it. You've got to offer it. You must give a rain check if you run out of them. And somebody comes in for it until you get more in, and then you got to offer that price. Is it only our industry that we can do such clown acts and have it as acceptable? If you're an auctioneer and you're putting the house on for $1 and saying that that's opening bid, people kind of get the idea that it's an auction. Why are we turning listings into auctions without auctioneer licenses? It's crazy to me. I don't know. William, I agree prices will still go down. FHA buyers from 2022 to 24 are underwater. I doubt they'll be able to refi. Thank you for bringing this up. Because Mr. and Mrs. Date the Rate loan officer that likes to say, you can always refinance later, just buy the house now. Well, guess what? If you were on a 3-2-1 buy down 3 years ago, you are now looking at 6.5% or wherever it was that your rate eventually moved to. So for 3 years, your payment's been going up, and now welcome to reality. You can't always refinance. Sorry, it's the truth. If home values drop, and they are, and new comparables are being set, and if rates go down to 5.5% or 5%, you will be stuck and bound by the comparables because you will not be waiving your financing contingency, and you're going to need a loan in most cases to buy a house. So an appraiser is going to look at comps, which are trending down. Will we ever see appraisal gap contingencies like we saw during the pandemic? No. We're not. That will make a great meme if they do, but I don't think they will. I'll admit I'm wrong. You can laugh at me. Spread it all around Instagram and TikTok. We're on there, by the way. You can follow us on every social media platform. But yeah, you can't necessarily refi if you're underwater. So you're screwed with your higher payment. So your loan officer was wrong if that's what they told you. You can refinance it later. And it costs money to refinance. And your amortization schedule is going to start back at day one again. And then other lenders are saying, no, we don't do that. We let them stay where they are. We let them pick up. Yeah, but what's the fee to do that? There are junk fees and hidden fees and just about everything. Lending, title. It's a fact. In fact, very few people shop lenders for that reason. I got to pull my credit report again. I got to tell them everything. I got to fill out an application. I don't want to do it again. But yet they've got the headline rate, and I'm okay with that. I got good credit. Well, everybody's fees are different to originate loans. They have these different fees and things that they can charge and not charge. I mean, you got to pay your lender fees You can't finance them. They're out of pocket. Same way with your realtor fees if you decide to have an agent. That's why I've been teaching people how to do it on their own. People say, why are you doing that? Because now more and more buyers are required to pay it, and the agent is standing between them and the house that they want. Because you're signing some buyer agency agreement that says you can't buy that house without them if they show it to you, and you owe them X percent. And if that seller says, I'm not providing any buyer agent commission, and the listing broker says, neither are we, then that buyer has to now pay their agent, and you can't finance that. That's an out-of-pocket expense. If they're charging you 2% and a $500,000 house, stroke them a check for $10,000. Or take my course and learn how to write a buyer agency agreement. What to make sure you have in there to protect yourself that you can say, see ya. If that's the case, agents, you can't get mad at me for this. You can, but you're wrong. Look, this business is changing. Wake up. Just like this dollar thing, man. People are getting pissed off. Homeowners are like homebuyers. You're wanting to be like excited about buying a home, and they call me up and they say, look, they just dropped this price, $150,000. I want to buy it. You go, no, that's not what they did. They're playing games. This business needs professionalism back in it again. The only reason HOAs are required is because that's how it was set up. The developer, when they bought that parcel of land, made a deal with the county that they were going to set it up as an HOA so that the county didn't have to worry about, in most cases, the roads, the curbs, the gutters, the drainage, the stormwater management, the non-used areas. They also made a deal that they would charge every homeowner a front foot fee to pay for the water and sewer charges that go in and finance it for decades as a special assessment. Front foot fee. Deferred water and sewer charge. Yeah, you can't get away from them in some areas. You're stuck buying an HOA. It's not for me. This was done, and in this video I have coming out, I go into detail, but it was actually very discriminatory. Back in the day, there were a lot of discriminatory practices that were put into the covenants, the restrictive covenants. One of them was not allowing non-white homebuyers, banning certain religions. Those are now illegal now. A lot of these regulations are still in the deeds today, but they're not enforceable thankfully, because of fair housing laws. But HOAs were originally designed by these developers to make picture-perfect neighborhoods and control the activity of the homeowners, to govern them, or what they can and cannot do to keep their communities looking the same, homogenous. So there was a lot of corruption in HOA in the early days, yet they didn't have as much control as they do on us now. They still have a lot of control they still had a lot of control in your life back then. But thank goodness they don't have that kind of control where they can say who can buy it in that neighborhood. There it is. There's our videos coming up. I'm really excited about this one. Our team put a lot of effort and time into this, and it's sort of like a documentary of the beginning of HOAs and what you're living with today. And like I said, we hope to back this up with that attorney interview that talks about what people can do to say no to some of the things that they're being maybe penalized for that are too restrictive and corrupt. Don't you just love when I'm shaking it up? I mean, of course. Give it to Todd. He'll talk about it. Saw or heard something recently about seller concessions and other buy downs don't get counted in the sold price. Yeah. So what you're saying here, that's one of the ways to keep new construction high or comparables high. Some sellers are trying to do it. They're realizing to do a rate buy down might cost them $40,000 or $50,000. I'm like, screw that. We'll wait until somebody comes by that has more money than sense and will just write us a check for what we want. We're willing to wait. But when you buy down rates, it is actually a price reduction because it costs these builders. They say, look, here's the price of the home. We would rather give incentives like granite countertops or luxury vinyl plank or upgraded appliance packages. We'd rather do that than to drop the price. Well, that didn't work. Because if they drop the price, they piss off everybody else in the community saying, man, I just paid $50,000, $100,000 more for my house. And now you. So what they do is they have to get creative. Well, how do we not upset the apple cart? How do we not get in trouble with the people that we're under contract with? Because if they walk, we have even more inventory. We'll keep their deposits, but we'll still have even more unsold inventory that's built. So now it's depreciating and falling apart. We got to worry about that. So what can we do? Well, we can either give them more incentives. We can build a smaller house because then we've changed the square foot size. We've reduced the price of the house, but it looks the same. Everything else is the same. We just pulled this wall in a foot, this one 6 inches, that one 18 inches. We made a smaller house, and we're not upsetting the apple cart because the people are like, well, it's not the same house. You got one of the smaller ones. You came in later on, and you got a smaller house, and my house is, which is fine. But the other way they do it is they give you a rate buy down, which means that it cost them $40,000, $50,000, but they own the mortgage company too. So they eat that loss on the finance side. So it never shows up on the home sale side. So they keep those prices high. But guess what? None of it's really working right now. Lance Lambert just came on our show last month. We do a monthly update with him. He owns Resi Club. He's got a business that does housing analytics. I mean, that's what he does. He's a data research firm analyzing the housing market. That's all he does. And he said that even builders now, I don't know, maybe it was one of them. I don't want to mention the name because I don't want to push anything wrongly. But one of the big builders said they expect this trend to keep going, that the profitability to get slimmer and streamlined, and builders, they're going to sell houses. They have shareholders. They have a daily operating cost. They have lots. They're doing more creative things, bringing in investors. Some builders now are discounting, allowing in a month 2 investors to buy houses or buy 2 houses a month to turn them into for rent. They're giving them discounts on it. Some builders will even let other builders come in and buy the lot and build a one-off house if it makes sense. If they got a little street or section or cul-de-sac that they can spawn off. But builders have to sell houses, and that's the thing with existing homes. You can actually get a new construction a lot of times cheaper per square foot than you can an existing home. So something to certainly keep in mind. I know there was some super chats too. Oklahoma and Tulsa. Just pull it up. Zillow. You want me to pull it up? You just go to, just pull up Oklahoma. Zillow Housing Report, Oklahoma. And you'll find it, 2025. It's very easy to find. Just pull it up. And we'll look at it real quick, but I know we had some super chats in there too. I want to just, all right, Tulsa, Oklahoma, year over year, 1.8%. Scroll down. Let's look at see what's happening here. All right, so we're starting to see it tip 51.8% under list price. Click on the 1-year view, Riley. Okay, so we're not seeing, I mean, it's kind of leveling out. We do see it peaking somewhere about February, March, and then we're seeing a dip. But Tulsa, I mean, it still does look like the values aren't changing that much. Now, you may have subdivisions. Again, you can break it down. Search on Zillow, specific areas, cities, counties, and get what you're looking for. All right, Jake, thanks so much for your super chat. We pay property taxes for them not fixing to fix anything. Yeah. I mean, I know here in Maryland, I mean, you drive around, there's freaking trash on the sides of the roads. Weeds are growing everywhere. I was just saying the other day, I mean, you know, we go from a surplus to a deficit. You talk about raising state sales tax and tax on everything else. They're taxing gold now in Maryland. My buddy just told me I don't buy physical gold. But they're taxing gold and 6% sales tax on gold. Basically, it's shut down this one business that my buddy likes to go to. They're moving. They're either relocating their business or going broke. They said 80% slowdown in gold sales since they initiated sales tax on gold. Money, real money. Guess it's not real money anymore. But some areas you drive around, they have high, like 8% sales tax. What's that, North Carolina? You drive around, the streets are beautiful. They're landscaped. I don't mind spending money. I don't mind them taking my tax money if I can see it. All right. Okay, guys, we appreciate you. Thank you so much for watching, spending your time with us. One of the biggest compliments you can make for me here. And by the way, I will say you can join as a member now. We do have memberships. We just opened it up. $3 a month. You can support our channel. It helps us to just do what we do. You can cancel it at any time. And yeah, we're going to do some cool things for members in the near future where we'll have special Q&As and things like that for members. But right now you get a emoji. That's not what I'm talking about, Joe. You can get that off of there. This is actually on our web. You don't even know. It's our YouTube channel. They get custom emojis. Like I was fooling around, I don't know, a couple nights ago. I was like, hey, cool, man. All these people have like memberships and you can do cool things for people that want to come on and be members and support the channel. Why don't we do it too? So you have emojis, custom emojis, you get a badge, you get special shout outs, you get discounted merchandise on SachsRealty.shop. You save 20% if you want to buy one of these cool jerseys. A lot of people like to jog in them, work out in them. Very comfortable. Fall coming up with sweatshirts, hats, t-shirts. You get cool discounts, 20% discounts on that. And yeah, why not? Everybody else is doing it, so I thought we'd do it too. But one of the best things you can do is share our channel, help us continue to build the most amazing, I mean, I don't even know what we're at, 228,000 subscribers or something. Gosh, thanks, guys. Would have never guessed it. Would have never even guessed that we would have that many subscribers or have millions of views, 50 million views on our channel. And so much of you following us along and commenting and sharing. And I mean, it's just, I love you guys. You're the best online community that I guess I'm a creator. I don't know. I'm a real estate broker, but a creator. Any creator could have. I love my audience. So thank you very much, guys. We'll see you next time. And subscribe if you haven't done so. If you want more information, we're going to keep pumping it out. I think we're going to post, 4 times a week or 5 times a week or try what? 4 times a week does that include the live stream? No, 5 times a week with the live stream. So they're putting me to work here, guys. And we're going to be tracking this market very closely and bringing you the best up-to-date information that we can. See you next time.
Sachs Realty, Maryland broker number 607720, office number 443-318-4513.